Hi everyone, welcome to GFX Farhan. As you see the final result of the cool and realistic explosion, in this video I will show you the walkthrough of these explosion settings. The project file included and link available in the description. And one thing more, the project file is not free, its price is only $1. Yes, you hear right, its price is only $1. Guys, I really need your help and your support because I am jobless, my YouTube income is negligible, and I also need a good and fast computer because I have a laptop due to which I cannot maintain consistency in my content creation. So it's a request, please buy the project file which have very low price. $1 is not a big deal. Those who don't have access to Gumroad, they can contact me using Facebook, Instagram, or email me, links given in the description. So let's get started the video. Okay, so this is my complete setting. These are lights, camera, environment light, and some distance lights. And this is geometry light, which I will show you later. This is separate layers like explosion, dust, and shockwave. And this is ground. Okay, and this is my explosion setting. So here these are separate files: smoke trail setup, dust shockwave setup, and ground faster shockwave setup. And this is my main explosion setting. Okay, so I use a circle for this, and this is my setting. You can check it in project file and follow this walkthrough, then you can better understand. And here I apply noise on this, on the position. Okay, then I scatter some points around 15, and I transform it, but this is optional. Okay, now then I add a Pyro burst source. Okay, and these are my base explosion. And if I go to burst animation, and this is my setting. Here I think I need to explain something. Okay, so this is a pyro burst source of default with default setting, and this is the start frame. You can change it where you want your explosion. If you start from frame 6, then change it to 6 and play with setting. Now here what I do, here I okay, but here is a problem. If I connect this, I have 15 points. Okay, now see, if I connect a pyro burst source with default setting, then all of my explosion are explode at same time. Okay, which I don't want. So here what I use this option. Okay, create a random node to further tweak the parameters. When I click on this, then look, a adjust attribute, adjust float, adjust start frame node are created. Okay, let me delete this. Okay, so what I do, I click on this and it's create a attribute adjust float and a start frame attribute is created for each points. Okay, and here now it's automatically set to a min plus range length. And here what it means, min value means that from where you start your first explosion. I select 3, so my first explosion started from 3 to 35 in these frames. Okay, this is my first, this is now it's look like this. Okay, let's see. And these are seeds. If you, and one thing more, if I click on this and go to geometry spreadsheet, now look, a start frame attribute is created and these are my points 0 to 14, which means I have 15 points. And now each point have different start frame, like 0 starts point 0 starts on frame 12, 1 starts on 7, 2 starts on 36 and so on. Okay, and if you change the seed, look, these number are changing. Okay, and now again here I use different settings. You can play with it and you can achieve different result. And I also change by default. If I go here and check, these are set to uniform, but I change it to varying, which give me a variations. Okay, if I change this, this is the size and of outward expansion and direction expansion. Look, okay, burst shape, it have shape offsets. Okay, it give you offsets in shape. Initial size, you can increase the size or decrease it, and also have some variation. Okay, so please play with these settings and achieve your desired look. Check out the project file and understand it. And here I and the Pyro burst source also give attribute like we can achieve in Pyro source. It give me Here I burn, temperature, divergence and density, and these are the setting, and you can also add noise on this, okay, separate. Then I add a rasterize, volume rasterize attribute node, and here burn, density, divergence and temperature, I separate these from the velocity, and it is my velocity, okay. Make sure check source attribute for this, okay. Then here I merge it, and okay, then I add a Pyro solver, and in Pyro solver I add some keyframes in the time scale because I want a faster in start and slower after start. You can also check my settings, okay. Here I also add a keyframe in the buoyancy. In start frame I increase and then decrease it so it moves slow. I also add some variation in the disturbance because I want high disturbance at start and then less disturbance after start, okay. Then I cache it, and if I click on this, here I cache it. Then again I add a transform node and move it to 0 world space, and this is my Pyro bake volume which I use for shading. Here I add smoke, scatter, and I not add a fire and a secondary fire for the trails, okay. And here is my explosion out. Now from the start frame again here I add a pyro trail, yes, I add pyro trail, and pyro trail give me these two nodes, pyro trail path and a trail source. Then from the start frame I add a pyro trail path. These are my settings, okay, which are using a burst ID and a trail ID, okay. Then here and here is a source, pyro trail source. It is a, you can change the shape of trails, add some noise. Here you can change animations, but because I add animation from the start frame, so I don't have any start frame, and I also check this to shift forward, okay. And this is the source value, and for this I need density for smoke and temperature for glowing the tip or head of the trails, okay. One thing more, I add a correct, I check correct length stepping, which improves the stepping of the density. Okay, here I use this type of ramps, and output I have these settings. I add velocity noise. Okay, on density I also add some noise, and on temperature I also add some noise. Okay, then here I add a rasterize, volume rasterize attribute, and now here it give me trail density and trail temperature. So check this, trail density and trail temperature, this is necessary. Here is only density and temperature, but here is trail density and trail temperature, and a velocity and source attribute also check. Then I add a split node, and in the split node I add a trail density. Okay, by checking this, because I need density in the solver, but I don't need temperature in the solver, because we can add glow or emission using our pyro bake volume by adding a secondary fire. Okay, now my trail density going here, and here I blast velocity, and here it only give me a trail temperature. Okay, and the trail temperature is going in the pyro bake volume. And so in secondary fire you need to add it here in the binding option. Okay, in the binding option there is a scatter, smoke, fire, and a secondary fire. In the secondary fire add the trail temperature, and in color volumes also add a trail temperature. Make sure it's trail temperature, not temperature. Okay, now here it in the viewport it is not showing the trail temperature or tip of this, but in rendering it looks fine. Okay, it's working. Okay, so delete it, and then here again from the start frame I add a pyro burst source. Okay, which I am using for a dust shock waves, something like if I check this, something like this. Okay, I use for this. So here I have different settings, and direction is to -y, because I need this on ground. Now it's going downward due to direction of -y, and you can also check these settings. which I explain in the explosion. Then I add a transform node and scale down it in Y. Okay, something like this. Then again I add a volume rasterized node. Density, divergence and temperature are separate and velocity is separate. Okay, merge it, add a Pyro solver, change some settings. Okay, you can check it. I also add some extra wind confinement and gas disturbance. You can also check this in the project file. Then I add a cache node and cache it. If I show you the cache, then it's look like this. Okay, then here I add a attribute delete and I delete CD and swap material, but this is not necessary. Again add a transform node to actually I copy this transform node and paste it here. Okay, these transform settings and these transform settings are same. Then again I add a Pyro bake volume and add some color only in the smoke, not use scatter fire or any other. Okay, and one thing more for the explosion, in scatter I also add a blur scatter and some masking. Okay, to achieve this type of look. If I close it, then it look like this. Okay, so I hope you understand this. And then this is extra for the ground shockwave, something like this shockwave, large shockwave. Here I use a torus and subdivide it, transform it, and in the transform I add some animation. My start frame is at 7 and something like this. Okay, here I add a delete node and add some expression. After 15 frame it's delete the geometry. Okay, then I add a mountain node to add some noise. Then I add a transform node to transform its height because I want this on ground. Add some velocity, compute velocity from deformation and some curl noise. Add a scatter node and add some points. Pyro source, and in Pyro source I use density and temperature. I add some noise on density and some noise on temperature. Okay, then add a volume rasterized node and here I add density, temperature and velocity blur and Pyro solver. You can check the setting in the project file. Cache it and Pyro bake volume, add some color to the smoke and done. Okay, now here I match the color of the dust and the ground faster shockwave with the plate. This is my background plate, and here I add a background image in my camera, so it give me this effect when I on camera. And okay, and if I and one thing more in the geometry light, I add a material, pyro bake material in the material tab, and here I add explosion. Okay, explosion to create the internal emission in the explosion. Okay, I means to create emission on the smoke and some emission lights on this. Okay, this is my mantra setting, but I don't render this in mantra because I also have very small or low spec laptop. I cannot afford the mantra rendering, but if you have good PC, then you can move with this. I use Karma CPU for the rendering. I also use XPU, but like in the explosion, the XPU material is added, and for dust, the XPU material is also added. And for the shockwave, I think here I now yes added. Okay, XPU material are added. If you want to render this in the XPU, in Karma XPU, but for XPU you need to change the material, like copy this name and add it here and here in all materials, then your XPU will work. But I don't use XPU for this because XPU don't give me the internal emission. Then I change it to XPU, from XPU to CPU. Okay, and here you can use this for the background palette by render cam, and I think this is not showing here, but in rendering this is showing, the plate is showing in the rendering, something like this. You can match lighting and colors by adding this plate, background plate. When it's done, then delete it or bypass it. Okay, and here I add a geometry, render geometry setting, and also check I use matte for this because I render the explosion separately, these dust separately, and these and the large explosion, sorry, and the large shockwave separately. So I use matte for this. If you have good PC and you can use you can render it in one file, then close this by checking the none option. Okay, here and here I not add. Okay, so our tutorial is completed. You can play with the setting to achieve your desired look. Please support me because without your support I am nothing. If you support me, I will give you better and best content. Thanks for watching. See you in another video. Goodbye.